Yeah, you already know who the fuck it is. I'm ℜ𝔞𝔫, we back in this bitch. Of course, we playing the tunes to keep you in tune, away from the doom, out of the tomb. We back from the dead. So we'll let this finish up, we'll get to it. Yeah, we taking it to the outer limits. Our traditional music is finished. So I had to introduce you to a new sound. Simple as that. If we expect people to come out of this situation still with the same mentality they had when they came in, if that's what you expect, or if that's what we actually see, people literally come out of here and start producing the same type of material, it's not going to have the same effect. Let me explain further. When we listen to music, it's like you are rotating in a circle, an orbit. You are fixed into whatever the constraints are of that particular song. However, with noise music explores the outer limits of sound and noise in general. The purpose is to not have a stagnant, rhythmic sound. Instead, it becomes unpredictable. And when it becomes unpredictable, it affects not just the conscious mind, but also the super conscious mind. And when the super conscious mind is affected, it has a greater effect on you as a whole. And this will be a perfect example. Just close your eyes and just let the sounds penetrate. And notice the difference it produces versus you listening to anything regular. What we notice is it has an easier time penetrating. You can just close your eyes and really just vibe out because the music has enough elements coexisting together for the mind to be entertained enough not to be bored. So this allows the mind to travel effortlessly without you wanting more stimulation. So I will have these tunes playing in the background as I created plenty of them. That's why it's taking me so long to come back live. I've been creating the sounds. Fuck the information if that's all it is. I am separating myself from anybody else who does this. So, I want to start with this subject matter. This is nothing new. You know, so many people have spoken about this. However, these people are not practitioners of the dark arts. So they are limited in their perspectives. So allow me to present a very simple idea and just allow yourself to marinate with what I'm about to say. For those who may not have seen the title is called, Did the Human Race Start in Africa? Or something of that context, as I already put the title in before I hit the live. The reason I feel this is necessary to speak on at this particular time is because if you are not aware of your origins on this planet, then you will fall victim to the madness that we will have to endure. I'm not even speaking about the madness that has already occurred. I'm speaking about the madness that has yet to happen. I did not forget about my predictions. I told you guys it's going to turn up between April 13th and April 15th, but I'm not going to speak about that in this video. I already have another video planned to let you guys know, I haven't been slipping. I remember exactly what I said, and I have the evidence to show and prove why things have been turning up, and we will have the news to back everything up and verify everything. Now, this is not going to be too long. I don't want to give a full presentation again. This has already been done by so many people, historians, all these things, right? Nothing new. I just want to present the occult perspective because that's the only thing I can do. I'm not about to read all these history books that are not even accurate and try to come to some type of conclusion as to where I'm from on this planet. A book is not going to be able to tell me that. Another man, another woman is not going to be able to tell me. We have to answer these questions for ourselves. And that's what the occult is for. When you are a practitioner, not someone who studies, someone who actually practices the arts, you are allowed access to realms other people are not, because they have not acclimated themselves to endure that type of pressure. What do I mean? It's very hard to understand anything spiritual if you don't practice magic. I speak about these things all the time. Most of the people who give us our information do not practice. They just study. If you do not practice, then there is no way for you to receive new information. If you do not practice, you cannot receive new information. All you can do is repeat what has already been revealed. Because all you can do is study what has already been studied. Go to the places that people have already explored. There's nothing new you can do. There's nowhere new to go. The only thing you can do that is new and current is work the occult. That is the only way to receive new transmissions. taking it a step further. Since there are very few people who actually practice the dark arts, there are very few people who can actually give you answers, because there's no way to have the answers if you're not practicing. Just look at the world right now. Look how literally within 1 month, a month and a half, the whole world has changed, flipped completely upside down. And people are trying to scramble to figure out why, how long, so on and so forth, when the correct questions that you should be asking is, what do I need to link up with to endure, regardless of how long this may last? What do I need to connect with to shield myself? What do I need to connect with to advance further? These questions are not even being asked. Again, because if you are not practicing, you can't ask these questions. You can't ask the questions if you don't practice, which is why I always hit you in the chest every time I come on here, every time I go live, every time I produce any type of content. I am saying the same thing over and over. Put in the fucking work. Stop bullshitting. Don't do it for me, do it for you. Because you have to open up your own consciousness if you want to see into the future. So you don't have to wait for me to make a video. You can make your own video. You can have your own perspective. Read your own destiny. But you have to practice, which is not easy to do, because there's a lot of information that's hard to understand because it's so old. It's easier to understand all these modern theories that are not facts. Let me take this a step further. The reason I want to ask this question, and anybody can chime in, anybody can leave a comment, and if anybody wants to speak, I'll give you the number and you can call up. If I say anything that is incorrect, feel free to speak, because there's no time for games or bullshit. Let's get this theory. It's not facts. Let's get this theory out of the way so we can actually move forward. The first thing I want to bring to your awareness, and I might as well just, bring up I'm going to pull up the internet browser and show some imagery and all that stuff in just a second. But the reason I want to even dig into this once again, if you are not properly connected, you will suffer. There's no way around it. There's no way around it. I already told you, but just in case you didn't hear it before. You will suffer if you're not properly linked up. It has always been that way. It's not because I said it. This is why we have always been practitioners of magic the entire time the human race has been on this planet. We have always been magical beings until our arrogance got in the way of the magical abilities that we have access to. And now we're in a situation where if you even speak about anything ancient, they deem it pseudoscience. So they're basically calling our ancestors pseudoscientists. With this being the case, this points to the fact that we think we're more advanced than the ancestors, even though we cannot replicate what they replicate. It's time out for the arrogance. It's time out for the arrogance. If you cannot replicate what the ancestors have done, it don't matter what part of the planet you want to look towards. If you cannot replicate what has already been done, then the only thing we do when we ignore what has already been done is destroy ourselves. The only thing we're doing, not acknowledging the past, not acknowledging the ancestors, is destroying ourselves. Because what do you acknowledge? If you ignore the past, what do you acknowledge? Most people's answer is science, the scientific method. They don't want to deal with anything that can't be seen and proven in the physical reality, because the intangible reality that we call 4D starts to get more and more personal. What does that mean? 4D will look different to everybody. You can say 3D looks the same. Everybody can agree when they see the color yellow, when they see the color blue. We can collectively agree on things. But once you enter into 4D, everything becomes personalized. And when everything becomes personalized, it's hard to define the collective truth, which was not really done till the 70s with Carl Jung, when he first brought to existence the science of the unconscious mind in English. Moving forward, it seems to me that the planet was once one landmass that they call Pangea. The planet was once one landmass. Let's actually pull something up. Let's see if we can find some imagery. So this is basically what I'm going to show you guys in the next video in terms of the current events. But this is not what I'm going to show you right now, because I have that already prepared. So let's type in Pangea. Okay, let me make sure I spell it right. There we go. Okay. If all of the land masses were connected at one point in time, which it seems to be, because if you can literally connect the continents together, right? So it's not really something we need to guess. At one point in time, the continents were all connected. My question is, when the landmass was one, were we calling that landmass Africa? The answer is no. The whole world was not called Africa when all of the land masses were in place. We were not calling this place Africa. We were not calling the world Africa. That's the first thing. So this means this came after the fact. Moving on to when the land masses were separated. Only then do we start to name these things what we know them to be named today, which are not the original names. Africa is not the original name of the continent either. The next thing I want to bring to awareness is, for us over here in America, labeling ourselves as African American is very problematic. Let me tell you why. It's not that there's a problem with being from wherever you are from. Wherever you are from is wherever you are from. We just have to be honest about where we are from. The reason why history is not a good tool to use to verify your origins is because we understand history is not properly documented. History is not 100% right and exact in terms of the documentation. There are too many lies to name in history. The main one being Jesus, who never existed. But even those who don't believe in him religiously, still deem him a historic figure. So we literally know the man that the imagery of Jesus was patterned after. The man's name was Caesar, not the Caesar, the ruler, but a man named Caesar. It's literally a man that they use his features to create what we know today as Jesus. This came from an actual man that lived, which has nothing to do with the original man, if this person was even real. But if the person was real, he did not look like what we all agree that he looks like today. Just a quick example of how history is made up. So when we dig into history as if we're doing something special, we're not. Because who knows what actually happened? The only way to really know what actually happened is to put that work in. That is the only way to know what really happened. Because if you are relying on someone else to tell you, who knows if they know what they're talking about? Who knows what their agenda is? But you know what yours is, and that's all you need. Next, if we understand that the entire planet was not called Africa, this is a later day creation. When we name ourselves after a later day creation, it's easy for people to not take us seriously. It's easy, like these motherfuckers don't even know who they are. No one feels bad that we choose to remain ignorant. Then we want people to care when hardship happens to us. Right now, original people are dying at rapid rates. No one has any answers. All these people are losing their lives and no one has any answers. All you have is a bunch of dead bodies. Too many that they don't even know what to do with them. They got to figure out where to put these bodies, which is reminiscent of the French Revolution, for those who know the history. Moving forward, this African concept is a fabrication. How do I know? Because you could not even go to Africa preaching that and expect them to agree with you because they don't. You could not even go to Africa preaching that we are all African, we're all from Africa. They don't even believe that. Because if you actually go to Africa, they let it be known that we are not the same. They do not identify collectively with each other. They don't. They let it be known what country they are from. Look at it this way. If two Americans met in China, they are both Americans, per se. But we know how big of a difference it makes when you are from two ends of the country. If you meet someone in China who's also from America and you're from America, let's just say you're from Los Angeles and they're from New York. Yes, both of you guys are American, but there is a huge difference in culture, even though the landmass is similar. Completely different lifestyle. It's the same with Africa. Depending on what country in Africa you are from will determine the life you experience. There is no, okay, I'm from Africa, you're from Africa, we're the same. I'm from America, you're from America, we're the same. No one thinks like that. That is a Western concept that came about in the late 80s. This whole Afrocentric consciousness. This originated in the 80s. Where we wanted to reestablish our roots in Africa. But this, again, is just not the case. I am not saying that some people are not from Africa, because you just very well may be. But to say that all people here came here on ships via slavery, meaning there were no original people, no black people, nobody was here prior to the transatlantic slave trade, that is already been debunked. That is a myth that has been debunked. Because it simply was not true. But we believed it because we're not connected. Because if we was connected, the spirits would just tell you who the fuck you are. No one has to guess. Why do I say that? Because all we had was the spirits in the ancient times. You didn't have a bunch of books and science and all this extra distractions and bullshit to distract you with. All you had was nature. Your teacher was nature, not the books, not college, not the sciences, not all this shit that we put our faith in now. You don't go to no fucking classroom and sit at a desk and open a book and call that knowledge. You had a direct, intimate connection with the natural resources around you, with the elements around you, which is deemed forbidden. Any type of elemental magic is forbidden. Why? Who made it forbidden to practice natural magic? None other than the church. It was the church that looked at the primitive sciences and deemed them, I'm not going to say primitive again. The religious Christians and any type of religion, they looked at older cultures and threw dirt on them, said it was devilish, demonic, stay away from it, you're going to hell. They told you everything that was original to you, everything that was pure to you. Now it's devilish, demonic, satanic, and you don't want nothing to do with it. It was the religious institutions that told you that lie. What I'm going to do now is take a quick break. I'm going to grab something out the oven. So what I'll do, let me play some tunes, because we already been live 30 minutes. So let me play some tunes. We'll be right back in a few minutes, and I'll answer the question. I see Dank Wizard has a question, and I'll answer that question when I return. So give me a few minutes. Let me see what we got here. Let me actually keep it. Let me see. Let me keep this window open. There we go. Let me keep that window open. We are zooming in. So let me play this tune, and we'll get to it. Let's see what we got. Okay, yeah, let me make sure that we are on the right. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Okay, that should be good right there. Okay. We back in here. We back in here. Okay, Dank Wizard asks, is it true that occultists who aren't, I said aren't, is it true that occultists who aren't original can't pull from the root of the energy, but work with later day entities like Hermes or Lucifer to hijack the original energy? Great question. I'll answer it this way. There is nothing that is not original. There is nothing that was not already here. So even if we use energies like Hermes or Lucifer, who came later on, it's still a variation of what was already here. So even Hermes or Lucifer are not original creations. More so new coats or new jackets that the spirits take as they update themselves. So the spirits naturally update themselves anyway. And we have to be able to perceive when the spirits take on new archetypes. The same way we had to distinguish the difference between Thoth and Hermes. We can say that these are the same energies or the same deities, just in different pantheons, but they are truly unique forces. To further answer the question, the energy of the 666, the 666 meaning carbon, is absolutely necessary. You need the energy of the 666, which is why the devil and all this demons, jinns, that's why all that negativity falls under the 666. Carbon. So all of these or all of those archetypes or symbols or glyphs are simply let me be more historic, because I know I'm just answering it simply. Like everybody does that. Let me take it a step further, because I'm not satisfied with the answer myself. Let me go deeper. Things like Masonry, Freemasonry. We know that many occultists are Freemasons. Many occultists are engaged in some form of a secret society or a fraternity, some type of brotherhood or sisterhood that shares original knowledge. See, the thing about knowledge is universal. So it works regardless of who and what you are. That's how you know what real magic is. Real magic works anyway. Real magic is not based on how powerful you may be on a personal level, because you still will get results, because all magic is based in science. We must remember there's a difference between religious worship and magic. What we see in today's times is mostly religious worship. People who are just giving energy to spirits just because they feel it's the right thing to do. That is not magic. Superstition is not magic. whatever type of supernatural experiences that people are thinking they're having is not magic. Because none of that requires science. You can say you've seen the spirit, you communicated with a spirit. That doesn't require you to know science. But when you are required to know science, to even understand magic, then you know you're working with something spectacular. See, true magic, you need science to even comprehend what's going on. Alright, we should be back in this bitch. I basically just had to connect to a faster network, which is all. So that was on my part. So I'm basically using basic internet, trying to do advanced stuff. So I had to connect to the advanced internet to match what's being done here. Because obviously live streaming takes up a lot of energy, apparently. So I just had to hop on to the 5G, which is killing everybody, right? According to the conspiracy. So I had to hop on to the 5G. So we're good now. Okay. So if you see in front of you right now, I have pulled up the energy of Thoth, or the Egyptian or Kemetic deity Tahuti, if we want to use the original tongue. The energy of Tahuti, or the Houthi, later deemed Thoth. Thoth is more Greek than Tahuti is Kemetic. So getting back to where we left off, you need science to even understand magic. You cannot even understand what's happening to you without a scientific foundation. Which is why I have tried so hard to connect the history and the science. It was no longer enough for me to just speak about magical things without backing it up with history and science, which is what I've been doing. Now, we have to link it with the occult. Again, which is not superstition or anything supernatural in the sense of you are expecting ghosts to appear out of thin air. You are expecting miracles, essentially. This is not what magic is. And this is why so many people are confused as to what it really is. They get magic confused with religious worship. So the most important thing you can do is understand the difference. Because magic is scientific. So without a scientific foundation, you can't understand magic. But religious worship does not require magic or science. And this is what we see majority of the people doing. Because they are not practicing magic and they are not scientifically rooted, which you don't need to be when it comes to religious worship. So this is what we have to understand. No one will make these things clear to you because they want to keep you in illusions. This is why I take so much time to make these things clear, to separate the difference so that you know where you fall and what you need if you're lacking anything. Let everyone else tell you that things is just going to happen miraculously and you don't need to do anything, while I'm the one telling you constantly to put the work in. The work is get your scientific foundation on point. Get your scientific foundation on point. All it will do is benefit you. Even though it's not taught this way, science and magic is not taught simultaneously. They do everything they can to separate them. But this is modern science. Modern science wants to separate everything when we did not separate anything. We did not separate anything from nothing because everything is connected. Why are you separating things if everything is connected and not connecting them? Even if you teach them separately, they are still not being connected. That is politics. That is a purposeful act to keep people confused. That's why we have 3 different types of people when we truly should only have one. But the separation and the divide is purposeful. It's not an accident. So because most people are religious, most people are superstitious, and they're dwelling on the supernatural, there's no magic or science. And because there's no magic or science, they are not doing any work that's going to advance them. What do I mean? I'll give a perfect example. We just came out of Easter Sunday, which at the Vatican, the Pope performed the ritual by his motherfucking self for who knows how long, or who knows how long it's been since that has occurred. Empty service. What does that mean? That represents religious worship. Just going off of rituals that are repeated over and over and over again. There's nothing new. It's the same rituals and patterns repeated year after year after year after year, keeping people in the box, doing nothing new. This does nothing to advance you because it is not scientific or magical. It's easy to be religious when you want to push responsibility away from yourself. When you activate magic and science, that means you become responsible for your own life. There is no God now. It's all about equations that you come up with. Your mathematical ability determines how far you go in life at that point. Your magical ability determines how far you go. Your scientific ability determines how far you go. There is no more hoping, wishing, praying. Hopefully my wish is granted. There is no more pushing off anything to anyone else. Everything is done by your own hand or your own mind. your magical hand that can reach beyond physical matter. You do every fucking thing, not half. You are no longer the co-creator. You are the full creator. But ain't nobody telling you that. Everyone is 50-50. It's not 50-50. Would you believe it if someone said you only own 50% of your brain and someone else owned the other 50%? Wouldn't make sense. But we are quick to believe that we're co-creators. But you wouldn't believe someone owns 50% of your brain because it's in your body. But because it's spiritual, because it's intangible, we start saying any fucking thing, removing responsibility from ourselves. So it's easy to push it on Jesus, Allah, any of the prophets or the messengers. And just put more weight on their back, right? Which is what people do. Jesus died for our sins. That's the saying, right? So you're just going to put more weight on this motherfucker? Still sinning? Still doing the bullshit? Making his weight harder? But it's easy to push the weight or the responsibility away from yourself with religion. Religion actually teaches you how to do that. Just pray and, release all your sins to, it teaches you how to do this shit. It's not telling you, okay, you gotta literally dig yourself out of the mud because you placed yourself there. You placed yourself there and only you can get yourself out. There is no help waiting for you. That's pretty harsh. That's not being taught. Why? That's not gonna make you put any money in the pot at church. When they say you gotta do everything yourself. You're like, well, what the fuck do I need a church for? Exactly. So why would they ever tell you that? You really don't need us at all. You don't need this church. You don't need this temple. You don't need this mosque. You don't need this synagogue. You don't need anything. But that's counterproductive to business. And because religion is more business than actual magic or science, we understand the agendas at play. It's very simple. When we have original thought flowing through the currency and the ethers because we made it so. What do I mean? When magic happens in your life because you made it so, because you created the energy grid, because you created the altar, because you generated the energy, because you documented your dreams, because you work with the ancestors, because you activated the energy. When you're putting in 100% of the work, when it's all you, what spirits are you working with? I'm actually feeding the spirits. They're not doing anything. I just wake them up, feed them to build up the communication. But they are not doing anything. I have to receive the message and then decode it. That's what the science is for. You may receive a coded message and don't know what the fuck it means. You may have to decrypt it. You may have to activate your coding ability. Well, who wants to code, right? The most boring shit in the world. But even technology is spiritual. Because the one thing that we are not lacking is technology. Because it's spiritual. The spirits guaranteed certain rewards and gifts for those who are conscious. Getting back to the main point. Whenever we try to pretend like all people came from one place, we defeat ourselves. So you mean to tell me that none of the other planet had the ability to create life? It just had to come from one place, huh? You got people who are glued to this idea, and there's nothing you can say to them. Like it's impossible for life to originate anywhere else on the planet. To me, these people don't understand magic or science, because if that was the case, why are there people all over this planet? And why could that not have always been the case? That people have always been every goddamn where at the same time, all over this motherfucker, chilling everywhere, all weather, Eskimos all the way to the beaches, the nomads, the Eskimos, the nomads, everything in between. But somehow, we train ourselves to believe that this is not possible, so that we have to identify with a fabrication that is not true. Because when we identify with a fabrication that is not true, then we lose our real power that is true. I will make this last point and end the video because I have to start the next video. I have to continue to prove that I've been right the whole time. So I'm going to continue to just bash your head in with facts and information that you're not going to get anywhere else. Because everyone's afraid of the devil, right? Everyone's afraid to practice. Everyone's afraid of the dark arts. It's just scary, spooky. They don't want to touch it. Seems like the only one who was willing to touch it is the one putting you up on game, while everyone else is still trying to figure shit out. I'm telling you exactly what the power is. There is no questions that can't be answered when you practice the arts, because you know how to get the answers. When you activate divination, you know how to get the answers. The closest most people get to is, again, just reading tarot cards. They may be astrologers. They may work with the roots. That's as far as you're going for most people. But you have to connect it together. Because what's a tarot reader without astrology? What's astrology without the tarot? What's the tarot without alchemy? All of these things are synchronistic. So if we are missing degrees in things that are supposed to be connected together, how can you see the full story? When the tarot clearly is connected with astrology, there's no way to understand the tarot without understanding astrology. It's clearly connected. And that's clearly connected to alchemy. So there's no way to understand alchemy without first understanding those first principles. It's a process of growth and development, which should come natural because we understand these things anyway. We always have understood things holistically. It's hard to understand things separately because that's not how life works. Life does not work separated. Life works collectively. So if you're learning things separately and you're not given the ability to connect everything, even though everything is connected, then you will have a hard time understanding anything. But people have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to even understand this type of stuff. You have to go to college. You have to get in debt to truly advance your mind. Because the only other option you got is a occult. If you're not willing to put hundreds of thousands of dollars into your education, the only thing you have is the occult. That's the only thing that's going to match that. What we have always had access to the whole time. This information has always been available to us the whole time. But we always pushed it to the side because whatever we identify with doesn't equate the occult or magic. To call yourself an African American, for example, is nothing magical. What does that really mean? Versus someone says, I'm a Spartan from Sparta. You see, that means something. I'm a Spartan from Sparta. Just as an example, that means you're a warrior from a place where they breed warriors, the most elite. See, when you name your landmass, it's supposed to be something connected with that. There should be some form of culture connected when you speak about your landmass. But that's not the case. When you say African American, where is the cultural connection? Where is the cultural connection? Whether you're talking about African or American, because most Americans are not practicing the original culture of the lands either. They're not practicing original African arts or original American arts. Let's just be real. Most people who call themselves African American are not practicing either one of those arts. So what does it really mean when you say that? What does it really mean? When there is no cultural connection. What does it mean to be African if the people in Africa identify themselves differently? They're not calling themselves African. They're calling themselves whatever country they're from. So they're not even using that term. So why are we using the term? Because it's a Western identification that was created. It's a creation that means nothing. There's a word for this. It's like a hollow earth. A hollow earth. What does that mean? When you say you are the original of the earth, you are the first on the earth, because we all beat our chests up with this shit. We're the first, we're the original, whatever. But what does that mean? So what? If you have lost contact with the culture, with the secrets, with the magic, and with the science, how does any of that help you if you're not connected with the spirits of the land? What is your melanin going to do for you if you're not practicing magic, which is the purpose? When we simply do the same thing that everyone else does. I'm first, I'm original, but I went to school like everyone else did. I know the same thing everyone else knows. I really don't have anything new or original to offer. What difference does it make? So, I say remove yourself from the titles. Identify yourself with your magical art, with some form of culture, some form of natural science, something that actually holds weight. Because that's what we are. Everyone has a gift, a special attribute that needs to be developed. Everyone has the ability and the potential to activate their magical science. But there are a million distractions Well, not right now, but there was a million distractions. Until we realize we have been giving our energy to all these things that got us nowhere. Racism still exists. Just look at what's going on. Everything is highlighted. The racism is highlighted because of this disease. It's clear as day. Nothing has changed, and it will not change. Why? Because we are expecting people to grow up. What type of shit is that? You're expecting, oh, you know what? We were wrong. Let's treat you better now. Like, okay, we're waiting for people to grow up and be mature. It's not gonna happen. It needs to be forced or enforced. What do I mean? Let's take it back to the times where it was lawful to be racist openly. Let's go back to the original roots of the Americas, when it was okay to literally take a life of someone of color without consequence. It could easily be swept under the rug and no one cared. It was perfectly normal. Can literally hang motherfuckers from trees and a crowd of people see it and everyone goes home and sleeps regular. This is the origins. Somehow the people forget and they're like, okay, that was a mistake. We shouldn't have did that. It's not how it happens. People change when they're forced to change. Not because they make their mind up to change. It has to be forced. Once again. Not physical force. Mental force. Because what's occurring right now isn't physical. It's mental. It's universal. As they call it, it's a pandemic. But it only highlights the bullshit that has already existed. But it will not be cleared until it is enforced. Let me give you an example. Go back to the Haitian Revolution. Did they kindly ask those people, the British, if we want to be specific, to lead their country and let them be? They asked kindly. They tried to get the laws changed. They tried to go into politics. That's what they did. That's how they got changed. Peace. They used the Martin Luther King method. They used the Malcolm X method. No, they didn't use either one. They had to resort to magical science. What did they do? They poisoned the fucking water supply. This is the type of shit you're not going to get taught. They poisoned the fucking water supply. They had people afraid to drink water. Do you know what type of fear that causes? When you are afraid to drink water because you know that the people are poisoning it. What the fuck can a gun do to that? What the fuck can a law do to that? That was the French. Okay, if I said the British and it was the French, I stand corrected. I stand corrected. Europeans, nonetheless. This is when history can be used to our advantage. But this is the stuff that no one wants to study because it's hard to comprehend. Why? Because everyone puts their trust in their weapons now. Everyone feels, oh, I got my gun. Ain't nobody coming up in here. I'm blasting away. And people feel comfortable with that because they have metal, as if that's going to do anything. What freed the Haitians from oppression is magical science. They understood the way the earth worked. They understood poison. We can't fight these people. They're stronger than us. We have to resort to guerrilla warfare. We cannot fight them head on. What are you going to do with your little guns against missiles and tanks? It's not going to do anything. So, magical science is the key. Just look through history. Let's give an American example for my Americans out there. Noble Drew Ali and Elijah Muhammad. Noble Drew Ali and Elijah Muhammad. Why do I mention these men? Because there was no form of consciousness prior to that. What do I mean? These two men came in the name of Islam, not the religion, but the science of Islam. They showed us how to acclimate on American lands. There was no sense of consciousness before these men. They showed us how to acclimate on this soil, how to do it right and exact. And yes, these men were called mystics. Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam were referred to as a voodoo cult in the early days. Noble Drew Ali was accused of being a crystal ball reader. Both of these men practice the arts. It's clear as day. But the thing is, we're quick to dismiss that, but we can't replicate it. We're quick to dismiss, oh, that was mysticism. That's pseudoscience. We're quick to dismiss it, but we can't replicate. Because both of these creations are still in existence to this day. They may not be as strong as they were when these prophets were on the planet, but the Nation of Islam is still here. The Moorish Science Temple is still here 100 years later. Why? Because it's based in magical science. It's not based in religious worship. Name anyone who has been able to replicate what those men did. They don't exist. But these men are not even mentioned. Noble Drew Ali don't get mentioned in Black History Month, nor does Elijah Muhammad. They don't even get mentioned, but Elijah Muhammad was the most successful black man in America. The most successful man, black man in America, does not even get mentioned in Black History Month. It's on purpose. Yes, modern science is a religion. Yes. And I'll tell you why. For this exact reason. All they do is say everything before modern science is pseudoscience. And if you look at all of the topics that fall under pseudoscience, it's everything that was original, that came from original people. Everything that came from original people is now pseudoscience. Pseudoscience, it doesn't follow the scientific method. But it built pyramids that can't be replicated. It built ziggurats that can't be replicated. It built astrology devices, crop circles, so on and so forth, that cannot be replicated. But we just brush it off as pseudoscience. And it's primitive. But it can't be replicated. If it was so primitive, we should be able to do it easily. But we can't. This is why it's a religion. It's like Christians versus Muslims. It's not based in facts. It's not based in science. It's based in belief. Modern science is a belief system. Darwinism is a belief system. We did not come from fucking monkeys. None of our teachers taught that we came from monkeys. That came from Charles Darwin, and that's a belief. That's no evidence. Monkeys didn't build pyramids. You can't say we came out of caves and then we figured out how to build pyramids. It didn't happen like that. We're talking about different types of people at different periods of time. Yes, cavemen did exist, but this is not the origins of the human race. Pyramids were already on the planet when cavemen were here. Pyramids was already established. It was already here. So yes, simultaneous. This is why they don't teach the original, because it destroys everything. When you put it into proper perspective, you're like, oh, the pyramids were on the planet at the time of cavemen. That puts things into perspective. Oh, well, we was already. Oh, people were on the planet at the same time as dinosaurs? They don't tell you that either. Like, oh, wait a minute. Some real life Flintstone shit? Because if you reveal that, you come to the realization, oh, we was just doing any goddamn thing. The same way we can tame lions, we can tame T-Rexes and flying mammals. Yes, Neville Goddard was taught by Abdullah, who was a Hebrew mystic. Abdullah was a Hebrew mystic, an original man. So yes, all of the so-called, I don't even want to say white, because what the fuck does that mean? All of the modern New Age teachers learned from original people. Go back to George Washington in the Moor. Type it in Google right now. Let me just type it on the screen. Let me show you. George Washington in the Moor. Let me type that in Google. Let's see what comes up when I type that in. Let's see what comes up. Let's see what comes up. Oh, George Washington, look at that crown. Oh, that was a slave. That's what they'd say. What fucking slave you know was crowned up like that? Some more looking fresh, crowned up. George Washington also owned slaves. So they like, oh, that was just a slave that he owned. No, you didn't see slaves with crowns. When do you ever see slaves with crowns? It's not happening. The man behind him was not a slave. It was a free man, a Moor. Abraham Lincoln also had black advisors. One of the advisors for Abraham Lincoln was called Purcell Beverly Randolph. Here, it's a light-skinned black man, an advisor for the fifth president, Abraham Lincoln. He was a medical doctor. Remembering an African-American medical cannabis pioneer. As you see, let's go up close. Purcell Beverly Randolph. Dr. Beverly Randolph. History that we're just not taught, right? Occultists. Do you see that glyph? Do you see these glyphs? So to be a doctor in those times, you were an occultist. That's occultism. Yes, the father of metaphysics, the inspiration for Dr. Strange. Exactly. The whole landmass is not Africa. The whole landmass was actually called Asia. That was revealed by Elijah Muhammad back in the 30s, the 1930s. The whole planet was called Asia, not Africa. But there is deeper science behind that, because if you take that on face value, it may not make sense. You need the occult to help you understand what that means. Because once you study the tree of life, you understand the physical world exists within the realm of Asia. What do I mean? Let me just type it in. I got the computer right here. I'm just going to type it in, so everything I'm saying, I'm going to prove it. If we type in Asia, we see it right here. Asia, physical world, material plane. So when Elijah Muhammad said the whole world was called Asia, he was talking about the elemental world of earth. Period. Kabbalistic teachings. It was already known. Nothing new is under the sun. It's already written. Okay, yeah, you zoom out. Yeah, okay, I'll zoom out. No problem. No problem at all. I'll zoom out. No problem. No problem. There you go. This is what I teach on the website. I don't teach this publicly. Anybody who was a part of the website, like this is all I go into in the website for this very reason. But just showing you this just to prove a point. That these things have been said in the past, but not fully comprehended or understood because we didn't understand this. Now that we understand this, we go back to what was said and we give it deeper meaning. We give it deeper, conscious, so that it's not just taken on face value. Just like the Asiatic black man, just that phrase, which Elijah Muhammad said. The Asiatic black man, so when you see Asiatic, you know they're talking about Asia, the entire planet, not a landmass. The entire earth realm, not a fucking landmass. Black just meaning original, from the stars, from the cosmos. The man from the cosmos who exists in the physical world of Asia. Kabbalistic science. Simple, but hidden. But once you know it, you can unlock everything from it. But, you're not going to learn this in traditional schools of thought. You have to seek it out for yourself. Do I teach the clip off? Yes, I reference the clip off, Satanism. All the dark shit that I don't mention publicly is on the website. It's already there. And I don't teach it publicly because it's not up for debate or scrutiny. I'm not going to put it out for somebody. It's knowledge that you activate yourself. It's not up for debate, so it's no need for me to publicly speak about it. Learn it, activate it, and change your life. Simple. I just show you how to go about doing so. Moving on. Everything is already here. But when we get trapped into this world, we lose sense of self. And when we lose sense of self, it's hard to recover when you're being led in so many different directions. So with this, I summarize it as go beyond modern day thinking, reconnect with the ancestral consciousness, and reawaken your magical science. No longer identify with landmasses. Identify with the elements, the forbidden arts. I've always told you this. Now I'm just giving you more of a reason to do so. What else is there to do, right? What possible distraction can you have to not put the work in? Unless you just really don't want to put the work in. But the truth isn't easy to swallow. The truth is not easy to swallow. So unless anyone has any questions or would like to speak, we'll do so now. I'll play another instrumental and we'll come back in a few minutes. I'll put the number in the live chat and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I can. Can you understand what I'm saying?
All right, we back in this bitch. We have a caller. What's up? What's up, bro? Let's make sure we can hear him. Give me a second. Let me cut this off. Let's see. Peace.
Yeah, we got disconnected.
What's going on, bro?
Not much, brother. Listen, I see you've got the Kabbalah up online.
Absolutely.
The front side of the Tree of Life. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with the backside, correct?
Yes.
And that's called the evil ℜ𝔲𝔪𝔞𝔫.
Yes.
Now, can you tell me, based on your understanding, first let me say this. I think that the backside of that ℜ𝔲𝔪𝔞𝔫, when we were born, is that soft spot in the top of the head before it hardens, that being the backside of the Tree of Life. Would you agree with that?
Yes, okay. Give me a second. They say they can't hear you, so let me make sure that you're on speaker.
Okay.
Okay, so I got you turned up full. So can you guys hear him now? So we want to make sure everything you said is loud and clear. So the system audio should be loud and clear. So go ahead. You said that the soft spot on the crown of the child is related to the ℜ𝔲𝔪𝔞?
Yes.
Okay. Now you said you had a question. I just wanted to make sure everyone can hear it. Can you guys hear the caller? So just want to make sure that everything you're saying is coming through clearly. But go ahead. I can hear you. So you can talk. Yeah, we can hear. Okay, so they can hear you now. Okay, so go ahead, bro. They can hear you now.
Okay. So it's my contention that backside, or that soft spot in the top of the head, is the backside of the Tree of Life.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that?
Now, there's always been relations to the human body and the Kabbalah as a whole. So I wouldn't necessarily exclusively connect it with the ℜ𝔲𝔪𝔞. But I will say, if you want to say that is part of the Kabbalistic teaching as a whole, then I could agree with that. But I wouldn't necessarily put it directly with the ℜ𝔲𝔪 exclusively.
Okay. And you indicated early on that one has to practice the magic in order to get it.
Yes.
In order to get results.
Yes.
But later on you indicated that at the same time it comes by naturally.
I said
it's a natural.
Let me clear that up. Absolutely.
Okay.
Because I don't want to make any type of miscalculation. Naturally, we all have a sense in which we connect with spirit. Some of us are clairvoyant, some of us are clairaudient. We have these natural gifts that were not developed, we simply had awareness of. We came into physical embodiment with these particular gifts. As we aged, these same gifts is what led us to seek more, because there are things that were occurring that we could not describe utilizing our normal means. So when I say they develop naturally, it's because we were gifted with them, and they actually are the reason we come into consciousness in the first place. So it is a natural development, but then you have to study to understand what's actually going on, because that natural development and awakening just calls you to study and seek more so that you understand it. But the natural awakening process is consciousness awakening as we age naturally.
But at the same time, it is part of that. When you come into consciousness, you are remembering, because everybody's not going to wake up to this. So those who are coming into consciousness are remembering something about themselves that had to exist before they came into existence. Would that be correct?
Yes, the spiritual inheritance, absolutely.
So then, and I'm thinking about this movie, Dark City,
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
and and how the character John
Mm-hmm.
had to start remembering
Mm-hmm.
only through the professor,
Mm-hmm.
which is the subconscious mind
Mm-hmm.
allowing him to continue to move on to that next level, correct?
Now, if you ask me my interpretation of the relationship between the scientists and Marduk, because the way I understood the movie, because I know Marduk to be a form of Tahuti or Thoth. So the fact that he was named after the Egyptian god of magic was very peculiar. And the relationship with the scientist, because the scientist was able to implant his own consciousness into Marduk's third eye. When he injected him in the third eye, he was actually able to see the scientist when he was remembering his memory. So the scientist was able to inject his own consciousness into the actual shot that he gave to Marduk towards the end of the movie. Now, my relationship to explain that, because he did not remember, and the entire movie revolved around the collective consciousness. Like, everyone didn't even remember that the sun no longer was rising. So at that,
Right.
at the time where I believe it was 12 o'clock hit, they all went to sleep, and he was the only one that was able to maintain consciousness. So when I say naturally, see, before he even got into connection with the scientists, he already noticed on his own that everyone was falling asleep except him. So that natural awakening ultimately led him to the scientist, because he wanted answers at the point. So once he connected with the scientist, he had already gone through his own process to get him to the point where now he is seeking the answers, because things are happening that he did not understand. So that would be my personal interpretation of the Dark City movie.
But then that would be then the consciousness of black people who are on that level of waking up and understanding, if not necessarily of their past life, but of this one here,
Mm-hmm.
as to what brings them back. Because if you remember in the movie, the scientist always shot the people in the forehead
Mm-hmm.
with this syringe
Mm-hmm.
to make them forget.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much what you were just explaining tonight with respect to how we forgot. We don't remember anything about us. So I'm seeing the correlation there and saying, well, you're right on point. The unfortunate for a lot of us, let me give you some insight right quick. I've been at this now for 42 years.
Mm-hmm.
My birthday is 8/23/1955.
Mm-hmm.
That adds up to 33.
Okay.
And I know you know how powerful the number 33 is.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't
Mm-hmm.
until I got to Phoenix, Arizona.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You're familiar with the fact that here in Arizona, the Grand Canyons are really the three pyramids?
Yes, I have visited the Grand Canyon, but I was not aware of that. Definitely educate me if you have more knowledge about that.
Oh, yeah. Just type in the Grand Canyon pyramids.
Okay.
And it'll pretty much take you to the videos where you can check out
Okay.
where they're talking about why these pyramids were considered, they changed it to the Grand Canyon. Because remember, on the back of the dollar bill,
Mm-hmm.
it's that pyramid, correct?
Yes.
And everybody's under the impression that it has to deal with Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
But the pyramids in Egypt are in the desert.
Correct.
The pyramids on the back of that dollar bill is on rock. That rock is the Grand Canyons. I went there for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been here in Arizona now 13 years,
Okay.
and I photographed them. So I think that when we look at where we are, because you indicated, when this broke up, before it was broken up, it was solid. So our ancestors built these pyramids, these generators, what they call tetragrammaton. You're familiar with that,
Yes.
right? We have that ability because there are always the three that are aligned with the constellation. What is that? Where you have the three kings, the three stars.
Yes,
The Orion Belt?
yes.
The Orion Belt. Well, the same alignment that's in Egypt with the Orion, with the belt, is also the same alignment that's right here in Arizona. So when we go back and look at our history, because my background, I'm Choctaw Indian.
Okay.
Like I said, I'll be 65 in August. So I know that I was hard to hear. You feel me? So when you said that, I realized that we really have no idea who we are. We are calling ourselves these African Americans. I used to be a Negro too. I'm that old. But for us to understand, because when I heard Dr. Blair say on his radio, on one of his programs, that if you go out and photograph the sun, you'll see a second sun behind it. And I hope I'm not taking up too much of your time, bro.
No, go ahead, bro. Go ahead. I don't even.
So
sorry for calling you, bro. I don't want to disrespect you.
Well, that's quite all right, because I don't see myself as being an elder, because I'm not aging. You feel what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I didn't drink the Kool-Aid that maybe your grandparents drank. Now I saw what happened to my contemporaries. They all bought in. Well, I didn't drink the Kool-Aid because I saw early on what was taking place, and I didn't want to be a part of it. So that allowed me not to age, because I didn't drink the Kool-Aid, because they said by the time I hit 65, I'm going to be able to collect Social Security. I said, well, what the hell do I need to work for you guys for then? So I'm at 65, 130 pounds, and ripped the hell up because I do bar work. I work out immensely. And that's what part of nature that we've been taken away from, because brothers and sisters are athletes by design.
Yes.
We are conscious, righteous, cosmic beings that can whoop anybody. But what I've seen over the last, say, 40 years for sure, was my contemporaries letting you guys down. We literally bought into this material bullshit that one had to keep on keeping up with the Joneses. And I just couldn't be on that merry-go-round. It was just unbelievable. But getting back to the point, as people, because I do my sun gazing, and after Dr. Blair said go out there and take the picture of that sun, I saw two suns. My background again is in film. I didn't believe him at first. I went back and then I did the inverts on the photos and saw that what he was literally talking about was true. That there are those two suns. So that sun referred to what they call it Nibiru. So that black sun is coming back is only, and this is my own belief, based on the people who I've told, hey, you need to go out and sun gaze and see what happens. Well, my wife, so to speak, I'm not married, but she saw a black dot when she first started doing it. She saw a black dot. Well, I saw a white dot, and off to the right of that was the black dot, but that was hitting the pineal gland. So if we talk about looking at it and saying it strains my eyes, but then after you've done it and can withstand it, is my experience that you then have the water in the eyes. You rub your eyes and you'll see the crystals or the 7 chakras right there in your face. Now, this is from my own experience, but my own walking through this, like Dorothy walking down that yellow brick road, because you're talking to a brother who was on crack cocaine for 9 years, PCP, alcohol, been in federal prison. So I've walked down these avenues or these roads that were waiting for us based on who's in charge, that being that ℒ character, and understanding even in the courtroom. I've had, handled my own cases. Those are the challenges that we face when we go through these systems. So with respect to what you're saying about the natural way, when you said it, that's what I thought you were referring to. Because even though I knew I had been here before, I know about 2 of my past lives, there was never any fear of death because I knew it didn't exist as a child. Because I remember when I first saw the movie and the professor, what was his name, Kiefer Sutherland, was doing the DNA stuff and, changing people's DNA. I turned to my lady and I said, baby, that's what I remembered before I came back down here for me the second or third time. First, I was here in 1947. I know this is going to sound wild, bro, but I remember my past lives, and that and that was the key for me to understand. Well, wait a minute, I remember the one before that one too. So I came. I was born in 1947, and I died in 1955, and I wound up in that same experiment up there in the Alderbrough area before I broke away and came on down. And my birthday is 8/23, 1955. So when I found out that Mason number had more to do with one's birth, and that's only since I've been here, as opposed to someone reaching this high power. Oh, and believe me, I've been going through it with white folks and their masonry stuff. But I've always stood my ground. But understanding that Mason, if you break the word down, Ma and son, is how I'm interpreting now that because we all have access to this Christ being, that the access is through the Son. And if we're literally talking about, again, we're talking about being novice, walking through something as simple as getting back to nature and looking at the sun. So it's been my experience over the last, especially 10 years for a fact since I met my woman, that I've been able to have her take photographs of me personally and see on me the images and the things necessary that will allow us to get back to that being that we really are. And that has a lot to do with just the understanding that as babies walking through this, and I use the analogy of when I was in film school, there was this child walking down this gauntlet, and these one-eyed beings, were throwing these balls and chains, and trying to hit the child. And the child being so oblivious to this, he was able to make it all the way to the end without a scratch, because his nature was that of being, like we are today, friendly with everybody and not assuming any harm. Okay? But us not knowing that the things that we've lost, especially with respect to the magic, has been something that you just pointed out on here, Abraham Lincoln and the rest of these niggas who sold us out. But how many of us know that information? And it's been with me now. I've been at this since I was 23. So they've been on my case for the last 42 years. But not knowing that until I got to Arizona. So when I talk about walking this path naturally, it's like, okay, well, you really don't know this, but a lot of guys that I hung out with, I've been all over the country, knew this and pretty much were able to keep an eye on me. Let's keep this guy in check. Let's keep this guy in check. But understanding that the power that we have within us is there based on a lot, our birthdays, you mentioned what the astrology and what has to go together.
Yes, numerology, astrology, and alchemy.
Right. So right now I'm in that alchemy process. Me and my girl right now are in that alchemy process, where we're getting to the point where we know we're not going to need food at all because we are pure energy. So here's the question after all that, because you mentioned how dangerous it is, and I haven't practiced any of the magic. I got the books, that's the Hermes stuff, but I haven't practiced any of the magic. Because for me, again, it's still like walking down this path, being that child, and being unencumbered or afraid of getting hit. A few hits I've taken, be it crack cocaine and the whole bit, those are the punches that I had to deal with. And I was able to come out the other side. So the question would be, and because this is the only path that I walked, through understanding, because, again, I haven't practiced the magic, but just my thoughts have brought forth things that, as you know, can happen. Would it be a good idea at this point to practice the magic or continue to walk the path that I've been on, which is straight? Because my attitude is I've got detailed files. What do you think?
I would say if you decide to practice any form of magic, since you mentioned the tree of life and you mentioned the clip off, I would say it will benefit you to become familiar with the Kabbalah. You don't have to do anything else because everything is within that map, within those 11 sephra and those 22 paths, which equal to 32 paths of wisdom, as we know. So if you want to practice any form of magic, I would say go directly into the tree itself so that those 32 paths emanate from within you. Because my personal experience, because, I've been practicing magic like consistently probably about 5-6 years, and it was only after a spiritual experience happened to me, which I will explain now, just to give you further clarity as to why I say practice the tree of life. How it happened with me, what caused my revelation, what caused me to awaken it was literally a voice spoke, not to me, but through me. Literally the voice, it's like a hiss, a whisper, and it literally chanted the name of a deity, an Egyptian deity, the Lord of the underworld, ℓ𝔲𝔱. So literally the word ℓ𝔲 came out of my mouth. I had no idea what it meant, so I immediately went to Google and discovered that it was the Egyptian god of the dead. I had no clue what it was prior. I just literally what was that? I never even heard the word. Let me type it in, and it actually went to something. So at that point, I knew that whatever caused that, which came from beyond my conscious mind, that either had to come from the subconscious or the unconscious, I knew that it was time for me to take this seriously, to understand what was that. So after that experience happened, I wanted to understand what that was. So immediately I started to study. Of course, Egyptian deities, take on an Egyptian name, so on and so forth. Just embedded myself with the Egyptian energy. Now, this is before I knew there was a connection between Egypt and the Grand Canyon, and they found Buddha, the Buddhas in the Grand Canyon, everything you were speaking about. I knew about that aspect of it. I knew about there was Egyptian artifacts and Indian Hindu artifacts in the caves of the Grand Canyon with the ant people when they were growing beans. And yes, they actually built the Grand Canyon. It's not just something that happened naturally. This is actually an alchemical process. So I was familiar with that perspective of it, but I was not familiar that they actually represent the pyramids in the West. But continuing on, after I began to become familiar with the spirits and that particular pantheon, we just talk about the Egyptian pantheon. So of course, from Asar, it went from Isis or a Set, then from Set, it went to Haru. Basically, just started to get familiar with the different deities, the main ones, and basically build those connections. Just invocation, evocation, incantation, just basic things. I didn't actually get true revelations until I systemized the magic, which you do through the Kabbalah or the Kabbalistic teachings. What they do is systemize the magic so that you know exactly where everything is. For example, the Emperor card in any tarot deck, the Emperor card traditionally connects you to the Hebrew letter He. The Hebrew letter He on the tree of life is connected with Teberif, which is the sun, and Chokmah, which is the planet Uranus. So the emperor literally sits between the sun and Uranus. Numerology teaches us the attributes of the planets. We know the sun to represent independence, being able to be self-sufficient, And we know Uranus is a higher octave of Mercury, or the superconscious mind. So we have the conscious mind via the sun, and the superconscious mind, or gamma brain waves, if we want to take it to the Greek alphabet. We have the conscious meeting the superconscious. What is the bridge that connects the conscious mind with the superconscious mind? He, or the Emperor card. So it's just simple things like that, where you can have everything right before you in a systematic fashion, where you can answer any question that comes to your mind because you have that map right in front of you. And once you can identify what the energy is, you simply study the placement so that you can better understand why the manifestation took place. Let me give you a perfect example of what I mean. The experience, I'll give you my personal experience. There's a Hebrew letter called Shin, which connects us to the planet Pluto. Now, when I activate Shin personally through incantation, I literally feel like what they call a Super Saiyan from Dragon Ball Z. Literally, the physical world becomes secondary. The physical world becomes secondary in your consciousness. So literally, it creates a layer of protection or a shield between, let's just say, your aura and the world's aura. It creates an extra layer of defense so that anything that appears, basically anything that would normally disturb you, like anybody in your personal space or anything that would kind of, disturb your aura, no longer does that. You are actually so powerful, which is the energy of Pluto, because Pluto is all about power and force. You feel that power and that force within your own aura. Once you look at where Shin is on the tree of life, which is between ℜ and ℜ, or between the planet Mercury and the four elements. So I'm like, oh, okay, so when I activate Shin, what I'm actually doing is activating the four elements in the planet Mercury, which is a logical mind. Utilizing the logical mind to understand the four elements. That's what Shin does. So when you're able to systemize everything, every experience that happens to you, you correlate it within that map, and you study the surrounding areas of that map and what connection that energy, because it could be a ℓ or a path. Wherever it is on the tree of life, you understand it by understanding or studying the surrounding areas. This is completely difficult to do without a system, which is why it took me so many fucking years. It's not till I systemized the magic is when I became more mathematical, more scientific, because now everything is in place instead of everything being scattered all over the place. So the Kabbalistic teachings allow you to systemize your magic. So when you do put that energy to work, when you put that science to work, you have a map, you have a roadmap in which you can follow to better understand and deepen your experience, because you know exactly what the correlation is. The 22 Hebrew letters is essentially the 10 planets and the 12 zodiac signs. Every experience in life happens within those 22 realities. Once you can identify those 22 realities or those 22 states of consciousness, we cycle through 22 states of consciousness. Once you can identify each of those states of consciousness, then you know what to do, when to do it, how to do it, where to do it, and everything is systematic. But this is what alchemy is. You need numerology to understand astrology, then you need astrology to understand alchemy, which is the Kabbalistic teachings. It's basically alchemy, how to understand the alchemical processes of the universe, the triple stages of darkness. The Tree of Life shows us how the world is a copy of a copy of a copy. Once we understand those multiple dimensions, fire, water, air, and earth, Alazuth, Bira, Yetzirah, and Asia, everything is within this tree. There is nothing outside of the tree. So once you understand everything can be found within this tree, it's all about where is it and what path you need to take to manifest it. Everything flows very smoothly when the system is in place. And it has been verified by all of the ancients. Everything within this tree is verifiable. And I would say, so if you want to learn that, I exclusively teach it on the website. It's only $5 a month. So I make it affordable for anybody. It's already there. So if you want to personalize, like if you like the way I explain it, then you can go further on the website if you want to, or just if you understand it enough, like, okay, I get it. I see where you're going. I'll take it from here. So that would be my advice to you. Systemize the magic. So whatever system, I'm just using the Kabbalistic system as an example because it's right on the screen. It needs to be systematic. Once it's systematic, you bring it to life, make it work, make it walk and talk. Because you understand the system. Once you understand the mechanisms and the gears on the machine, then you know what to press, when to press it, how to press it, the pressure. Once you know the elements of the car, it's easy to drive. So once you get familiar with the elements, it's all about activating them when the situation presents itself. Make sense?
Makes all sense in the world. I guess that's why I have been following you for a while. But let me ask you, because you mentioned the senses of the states of consciousness and how there's 22 of those. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Now, would that be in relationship to the Sephiras on the Tree of Life? 11 in the front, then 11 on the backside, which is called the Qlipoff, or the backside of the Tree of Life?
When I say the 22 states of consciousness, I'm referring to the 22 paths of the Tree of Life.
Right. So there'd be on the front side, which are 11 Sephiras, then that would be on the backside also 11, correct? Which would give us the 22.
You can definitely draw it up like that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Because it's my understanding the people who are calling themselves Masons only had access, if you really look at because I've got pictures of the backside as well.
Mm-hmm.
They only had access to 6 of those, that Tree of Life. In other words, they're practicing their magic based on the 6. And this is my understanding from being a youngster growing up. There was a time when they would be on the news, they found somebody in their home burned up from the feet up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they probably burned as far as the thighs. And they called it spontaneous combustion.
Mm-hmm.
Only to find out later, as far as I'm concerned, it was literally people who were trying to tap in to those higher levels of the chakras. And because if you're not part of my understanding, the bloodline, you're not going to get there. But they are practicing using those 6 for the things that they're doing, and only we have access to the remainder, which would be those 5, and that would be the 5 elements.
Now, my personal experience with the Qlipoff, because I have worked with every single Sephira personally, and every time I work with the Qlipoff, it's a breakthrough. Like whatever issue that I was currently faced with, by the time I make it through all 11 of those Sephiroth, I have solved my problem. So I have done that consecutively because of that darkness that's contained within the Qlipoff. It will literally cause a breakthrough, and sometimes in not pleasant ways, just like the 72 _𝔂𝔱. So I would say with the stronger forms of magic is definitely the Qlipoffic magic, the goetic magic that's it's like you literally will break through or penetrate between these states of consciousness. So whether you want to say the 11 on the front or the 11 in the back, make the 22 or the 22 paths itself, it all comes down to understanding the system of the logos. In the beginning was the word, and the word was the logos. That's the Hebrew. variation of that. The logos of the 22 Hebrew letters. So the logos literally controls our entire reality. If we were able to see the glyphs behind consciousness or the ways behind the particles, we would see Hebrew letters. Like when they say binary code, quantum physics, the binary code is what creates reality. Instead of seeing a bunch of zeros and ones, you would see Hebrew letters. So basically that's the best way of me explaining the science of the Hebrew letters. Binary code. Instead of zeros and ones, you have 22 letters that synchronize with each other to create what we know as reality, a copy of a copy of a copy.
Okay, listen, I didn't even take up too much for your time, brother. I appreciate it, the work you've done. I'm here on your station right now. Where do I join you guys? Where do I join you to check out the information at $5 a month? Which one was it?
℉𝔲𝔞𝔫.com. ASHA Renew. RENU.com. ℉𝔲𝔞𝔫.com.
Okay.
And it's pretty much.
Can I also go ahead?
We're basically saying, you got about 300 pieces of content, so you got plenty to pull from.
Okay, cool. I'd also like to see you some photos. Would that be possible to let you check them out?
Absolutely. You can just send it to my email, asha@asharenew.com. You can send me whatever you like. So asha@asharenew.com.
I'm gonna do that.
Yeah. Definitely, yeah. So definitely, if you would like to share anything, definitely like send whatever you like to the email. I would definitely check it out.
Okay.
So I definitely appreciate you calling in. I definitely appreciate you sharing your energy. I appreciate your science. I appreciate your time on this earth. And I appreciate you definitely tuning in and sharing the energy with us. It was definitely educational, and I appreciate you, brother.
I appreciate you taking my call, brother.
Absolutely. So we'll definitely speak again. Appreciate it. Peace.
Okay. Good night.
All right. So I pulled up the clip off on the screen for those who may not be familiar with what the conversation was pertaining to. Talking about those dark arts. Systemize your magic. Whatever form you choose to use, make sure that it is systemized so that you know what to do, when to do it. Where did humans come from? Consciousness. Before we had bodies, we had consciousness. You can say we descend from the stars. You need carbon to create anything physical. Carbon comes from stardust. Without stardust, there is no carbon. So we come from the stars. We descend from the stars. We originate. You can say there is no beginning, there is no ending. So there is no beginning of time. There was never a point where we were not here. We have not always been on planet Earth, but we have always been awakened in consciousness, which is why here we are in the 21st century still talking this fly shit. The chain was not broken because of our celestial origins, which astrology helps us to understand. Astrology helps us to understand our celestial origins because it literally tells you where and what stars were active during the time of your birth. That's why we study astrology. We study numerology to comprehend what the planets and the constellations mean. Because astrology is just a bunch of glyphs and numbers. If you don't understand what those glyphs and those numbers mean, it's going to be hard to pick it up. Then once you understand the numbers and the glyphs, then you seek to synchronize them to become more alchemical in your thinking. So to answer your question, we descend from the stars because carbon comes from stardust, which is factual. So I know we have things like the Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang Theory, there's always been Big Bangs. That's to say natural occurrence in the universe. There was no ultimate Big Bang. It is a cycle that constantly happens in the universe. There is no beginning. There is no beginning. That's hard to comprehend. Like, we want it to be a starting point. That's Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein wanted it to be a starting point. But there is no starting point. Einstein wanted everything to be defined, which is why quantum physics destroyed the thesis, because it introduced chaos. And the last thing you want to know is we actually live in a chaotic reality versus a structured reality. Can you talk about the Kaaba? Now, when we study the history of the Kaaba, we know that the Kaaba was already in existence prior to the Prophet Muhammad coming to Mecca. Just like Mecca was already a spiritual center before the Prophet was in existence. So, before Allah, it was ℜ𝔲𝔞𝔫, which is a feminine deity. ℜ became Allah. The Kaaba is an earthly representation of the orbit of Saturn. The Kaaba is an earthly representation of the orbit of Saturn. Now, how did I arrive at that conclusion? Well, we know that the Kaaba is made from the black stone. There also is a vulva or or the vesica Pisces at the corner of the Kaaba, which you're supposed to kiss. When you are going around the Kaaba in ritual 7 times, some people kiss the vulva. Let me actually just show the image. I'm just talking. I'm just so used to talking. I be forgetting I can actually show you guys the imagery, so you don't think I'm just saying these things. Let me actually show you what I'm speaking about. I'm gonna type in Kaaba vulva. Let's see if it comes up. There it is. So this is what I'm speaking about. So as you circle around the Kaaba, here's this man. You see the man, you're supposed to put your head in there. Here's a woman right here. And kiss the stone. This is what I'm speaking about right here. So we have the Kaaba created from the black stone, and we have a vesica Pisces or a vulva right at the edge. So that lets you know right there that the Kaaba originally was a feminine energy, which I said was ℜ. Because Allah, of course, doesn't have a vulva. A masculine deity doesn't have a vulva. That has to come from a feminine deity. So the Kaaba and all of Mecca represented the feminine principle. If we study the science of Saturn, the planet Saturn, we know the planet Saturn represents longevity, endurance, perseverance, legacy, the ability to endure and withstand all adversity. The religion of Islam is all about discipline, praying 5 times a day, making wudu, making salat, going to Juma. It takes extreme discipline to live out that lifestyle correctly, that religion correctly, because it is based on the science of Saturn. So you can say Muslims are in tune with the orbit of Saturn, the original system, which is called Sufism. The Sufis created the science. The religion inherited it. So the religion of Islam is the inheritance of the mysticism of Islam called Sufism. We also know that the Muslim culture and the Hindu culture are very related. There is a correlation between the Moors and the Indians in India. The Persians in India, these are all Moorish people. This is all Moorish science. The Middle East, Persians, all that, Persian astrology, so on and so forth. All this comes from the Moors. Read the golden age of the Moors to more understand that. Or let me just show you this. Let me just show you an image of Noble Drew Ali, who I mentioned earlier. If you look at his garb, it was not traditional Muslim garb. You see, it's more Indian or Hindu. This is not how Muslims dress. It's more Indian. You see the feather, you see the crown. He has the same crown that I showed you guys earlier about the George Washington and the Moor. He has the same crown that Moor had on in the same picture as George Washington. Right? This is the same crown. Let me just type it in again for those who may not seen it. Let me type it in again. So here we are. Once again, the same style of crown. So there's a connection between the Moors in the Middle East and the Moors in India. So even though Noble Drew Ali came in the name of Islam, he had on Indian garb or Hindu garb. You see, he did not dress like the traditional Muslim, although he taught Islam. Just like Elijah Muhammad did not dress like a traditional Muslim, even though he taught Islam. So let me type in Elijah Muhammad. We also see right here Elijah Muhammad with the fez, holding the Quran. They did not dress like Muslims with the religion of Islam to distinguish themselves from the religion of Islam and the culture or the mysticism of Islam. And we see here Noble Drew Ali. We see the date on this, 1928. So in 1928, in the 20s, there was Islam. In the 20s. So who was putting us up on game in the 20s? The prophets, Noble Drew Ali. Then Elijah Muhammad came in the 30s. Before Elijah Muhammad, we had Farad Muhammad, who was the teacher of Elijah Muhammad. And here's his image. Again, teaching that the black man is God, but he does not look like a Muslim teaching Islam. So, just to make a distinction between the religion of Islam and the mysticism of Islam. The mysticism of Islam is what originally brought us into consciousness when we had nothing else. When we had nothing else, our consciousness was brought to life with science and magic. So just want to present the facts. So I definitely wanted to show you guys the imagery to support everything that's being said. So now that I have the ability to show and prove with the science, I'm going to continue to do so. So right after I end this video, I'm going to make the video showing and proving my astrology predictions that I made earlier. So I'm going to end this unless anyone has any more questions, and I will go to the next video and we will speak about the astrology. So what I would do is I'm going to play the last instrumental and we'll come back. I'll answer any questions or we'll sign out. We back in this bitch. All right. Question: what can be said about humanity's true history? True history is infinite, which is why it's so hard to comprehend. Everybody wants it to have a starting point when there truly is not one. And that just breaks down everything. It's hard to understand things when you can't grasp it with your logic. We must fuse the creative mind with the logical mind to truly understand what's really going on. Because you can't understand the pyramids with logic. You can't understand ziggurats with logic. You can't understand astrology with logic. You can't understand the occult with logic. You need creative energy combined with that logic. So the true history is that we are alchemists. Always have been and always will be. How do I interact with these invisible forces? Where should I start? Find the pantheon that speaks to you the most. What spirits draw you naturally? If you are a gamer, what is your favorite video game? What deity was that player patterned or designed after? It's just little things like this. Like, what was your favorite character in video games? What was your favorite cartoon? What deity was that character patterned after? You just have to go back, because you will realize it has always been there. You have always had a favorite of something. What you're doing is placing the science with what you were naturally drawn to, even as a child. You may not have understood it via mythology, but now we have mythology to understand what we have always favored. So you must study yourself. That's why it's called knowledge of self. You must study yourself. Then unlock the levels that you have already set in motion. Energies that you were already drawn to, but you did not know why. All you're doing is placing the why. You were already drawn to these things. So once you connect the why, then things start to unfold naturally. Like, oh, this has always been magical science. This is a seed for me to nurture and nourish. And the results I get will be based on the nourishment that I give. The results I get is based on the nourishment that I give. So as long as you are giving 100% to the occult, you will receive so much that you can't keep track of it. Not just physically, but intelligence. You just become more intelligent. Why? Because you're using more than 10% of your brain. That other 90% is spiritual. You don't just activate that by getting smarter. You activate that 90% by putting in work. You have to create the pathways for the neurons to establish their sparks of life. You have to connect the dots. They're not going to connect on their own. They're there. The dots are there, but they're separate. You have to build the bridges that connects all the dots together. Then you study the pattern in which you connected the dots. Because a pattern in which you created by connecting the dots will reflect who and what you are anyway. That's what evocation is, sigil magic. You start studying your own sigils. So start at the foundation. Who was your favorite cartoon, video game? Start at the basics and build from there. Because it's always right and exact. Because who you are then is who you are now. Now you just have the tools to unlock what you already are. You're not trying to be what you are not. You're just discovering what you always was and cultivating that awareness to embody a physical dimension in which is tangible for the mind to comprehend. What role does marijuana play in spirituality for a content creator like yourself? Psychedelics verified spirituality to me. So I'm going to take it way beyond marijuana because I've done more than marijuana. I've done all psychedelics. Every form of psychedelic I've done. So I'm the druggie. That's my history. So I've tried and experimented with psychedelics. Am I recommending that? Not necessarily. It's just me as a Scorpio. We're naturally shamans. We do this type of shit. Is it necessary? Absolutely not. Do you need drugs? Absolutely not. Now, if you are naturally a smoker, meaning you already got the fucking habit, then you might as well use it to your benefit. So if you are already a smoker, use it to your benefit. Because tobacco naturally connects you to spirits. Most people don't know that, but it does. Because all herbs have magical attributes. That's alchemy. So marijuana has magical attributes. Tobacco, magical attributes. That's how I use herbs if I use them. I'm going to activate the magic within. But ultimately, that only applies to those who actually are smokers. Some people prefer alcohol. Some people prefer other things. Whatever it is that you do, just make sure it's spiritual. Smoking weed is not going to make you spiritual. You're not going to be more intelligent smoking weed. Before I ever experimented with drugs, I was already who I was. So I can't really say that the drugs did make me who I was because I didn't experiment with drugs till I was 21. I was fucking grown. I was 21 years old the first time I puffed any type of weed. The devil's leaf. That's what I call it. I don't fuck what everybody else call it. I know what it is. I was 21, so I was already working, paying bills and shit. I was already bringing books, to work. I'm the one reading and working. I'm working and reading simultaneously, cause that's just how serious I was. I'm like, I don't have time to read. I gotta bring my books to work. That's what I was on. I had to bring the books to work. And they didn't care. They would rather you read a book than, to be on your phone all day, texting and doing, Facebooking. So they didn't have any problem with me having a book. So yeah, we prefer you to have a book in your hand. So it was no problem. I'm just working and reading and nobody gives a fuck. So that's how I was. That's just a sacrifice I made. I'm like, I had to risk it. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know if they was going to be cool with it or not, but I just needed time. I'm like, I have to read and I don't have time to do it except when I'm working. So I just put that work in and it just worked in my favor, but I was just that determined. I was giving my first tarot readings at work. I gave my first palm readings at work. I was that person. Oh, I know how to read palms. Oh, I know how to give tarot readings. Oh, you do? Well, let me read my palm. Oh, give me a four. Like, of course, people are gonna be into that. Of course, they don't associate it with the occult. They associate it with fortune telling. So of course they want that. Oh, my fortune tell me. Of course they want to know that. So it wasn't hard to put that work in and get the experience. Because who don't want those answers? So it wasn't too hard to grow and develop naturally, because everybody wanted that game. Everybody wanted that. Of course they want that. So if you know how to read that, if you know how to give them what they want, then it's just going to continue on, and it just continued on, and continued on. So yeah, that's what I was doing. I'm like, all right, let me bring this devilish shit to work and just take over. And that's just what happened. Like, I was the only one doing it. Tarot cards, books. Yeah, that was me, and it was not a secret to nobody. When I tripped on shrooms, it was like the world was flat. What does that mean? Well, we had the whole theory of the flat earth. The world was believed to be flat before NASA came along, even though NASA never verified it, because we still use CGI. So whenever you look at the Earth pictures, let me just type it in right now. Not making none of this shit up. Let me type in Earth right now. None of this shit is actual photos. It's all CGI. All this is CGI. This is not how the actual Earth looks. This is all computer generated images. That's what CGI is. Computer generated images. This is all we have. We have no actual image of the Earth. All we have is computer generated images. Oh, this was taken by a satellite. No, this is all computer generated. These are not pictures that you can take with your cell phone or your camera. This is a collection of data put together and made to look nice. You think the world looks this fly? You think the world is a sphere that's floating in nothingness? But of course, no one wants to ask the question, so we continue to be lied to. So when you see the flat earth was also shown in the movie Dark City that was mentioned earlier. Watch the movie Dark City if you have not seen it. Spend $3 to $4, however much it costs to rent this shit, and watch it. Educate yourself. Because that's where I first saw the flat earth, in the Dark City movie. And you have to understand the context in which it was shown to fully get it. But just bringing it to none of this is real. But everyone thinks it's real, but it's really not. But you have to have the eyes to see. Moving on. Yes, fake pictures of atoms. Yeah, all things that we think we know how they look, they actually don't. Like, I type in atom, atoms don't look like this. You're absolutely right. This is not how an atom looks. This is just the best representation of an atom. This is a representation of an atom. This is not how the atom actually looks. This is just how we represent it. All we have is representatives of how we think things look, taking it as fact. We just have representations. I'll say it again. All we have is representations of what we think things look like, because they happen on a quantum level. You cannot observe it with the physical eye. How the fuck would you know how it looks? So we create these representatives, and this is what we're taught. This is what people think atoms really look like this. But this is just a veil that's pulled over our heads, and we just think we know everything when we truly don't know anything. Till you actually do know by putting in the real work. The only way for you to actually know is putting in the work. If you want to know how an atom actually looks, you have to use your second sight. You can't use your first sight. You ain't using no fucking microscope. You need second sight. You need to activate your clairvoyance. But apparently that's too much work. People would rather just settle for this bullshit. It is what it is. Where can we find info about the sun and its true color? Sun gazing. That's how I found out. You have to sun gaze. There is no information out there that's going to tell you more than what you experience yourself. The sun is a chemical reaction of the earth. The sun, there is no sun. The sun is black. If you looked at the sun from outer space, you would see nothing. The only reason the sun appears to be bright is a chemical reaction. It's alchemy. So if you don't understand alchemy, you think the sun is actually bright. It's not. It's chemistry. The earth produces that. The sun generates dark waves that eventually light up. And that's what we see. What we see is the result of the sun. We see the results of the sun. Just like we are in the world of Asia, we are in the world of results. We are not in the world of causes. We don't see the causes. We see the results. All we have is results. We're not in the world of causes. You got to make your way up to study the causes. But you're not going to learn that in school. They're not going to. So you see everything that I'm telling you, I had to figure this shit out. I had to figure it out. I had to use my own intelligence, put some shit together, work with some spirits, activate some magic. Alchemy helps us to understand the mysteries. So while the average person is thinking that the sun is actually burning 24/7, when in reality it's dark waves penetrating the earth and producing the light as a result, not a cause, a result. Once you understand that, everything else is easy. From the darkness comes light. The light of the sun comes from Sirius, which is the brightest star in the sky. But that's astronomy, you see? Most astrologers are not astronomers, so they can't tell you all of these things. Once again, everything is separated. So we're only getting half or even sometimes only 10% of the story. The only reason I'm giving you the full context is because I had to piece it together on my own. That's the only reason I'm able to give you a more broader perspective. It wasn't just available to me. It wasn't, there's no book you just read now you know everything. You got to activate your own intelligence. This is why magic is so hard to comprehend, because it is very personal, yet intangible. I told you magic is personal. It's also intangible, meaning you have to activate your second sight. If you do not have second sight, how can you see any original manifestation? How can you see anything that's not there without second sight? You need second sight to see what's not there, but what's not there is what's really there. That's the crazy part. What's not there is actually what's really there. It's just too much of a mind fuck for people to truly comprehend. The universe is holographic. It's generated from the mind. But it's hard to understand the mind. We can say that the world is generated from the mind. We can say that all day, but do you understand what that means? Let's go to etymology. Let's end this. We go to etymology of the mind. Because again, everybody thinks they know everything, right? Oh, we already know what that means. Just don't give it a second thought. You know, I know what the mind is. Oh, do you? Let's find out. Let's find out. So it says, the noun, that which feels, wills, and thinks. The intellect. It also is connected to memory, remembrance, the state of being remembered. Thought, purpose, conscious mind, intellect, intention. Originally, memory, loving memory. Let me zoom in. Memory. So the mind, the state of being remembered. See, most people get caught up with this thought, purpose, conscious mind, intellect, intention. But the memory part, that's normally not associated with the mind in the terms of how we use it now. Mental facility, the thinking process. But as we see, that's from the 1300s. The original manifestation from the 12th century, memory, remembrance, the state of being remembered. That's the original manifestation, which is closer to the actual word. What I mean by the actual word, the language that the word comes from. The original meaning of the word is closer to where the word comes from, or what language the word comes from. So here we see Proto-Germanic. So the word is Germic. So mind is Germic. Now, mind's eye, mental view or vision, remembrance, comes from the 15th century. And this is what I'm talking about. The second sight. So when I say second sight, I'm talking about the mind's eye, mental view or vision, remembrance. Second sight is your ability to remember beyond your physical life. That's what dreams are. Dreams are your memories compiled and reorganized. When you dream, you are literally taking pieces of what you remember and putting them back together in a different way. Pieces of what you remember put together in a different way so that you can comprehend what you're enduring currently. Because when we dream, we're trying to figure out what's going on, solving problems, so on and so forth. We do so by utilizing our memory. You can't think of anything that's not already in your mind. If it's not in your memory, you can't think about it. This is what most people don't realize. As I always say, if I tell you to visualize something you have never seen before, you cannot do it. You cannot visualize what's not already in your mind. If it's not already in your memory, if it's not already in your mental view, if it's not already in remembrance, you can't bring it to life. Time beyond people's memory. Time beyond people's memory, which is what I just said. You have to go beyond your physical life. True remembrance is what the brother was talking about earlier, being able to remember your past lives beyond your physical life. That's what second sight is for you to remember what's already there. And we are not limited to our physical existence, as we've been here many, many, many times already. And we have a memory of it all, but it has to be awakened. You got to pull the memory out of you. It's not just readily available. But in order for you to pull it out of you, you got to put things in you. You got to put things in your mind to pull things out of your mind. You got to put vision in your mind to pull things out of your mind. The more you study, the more you can comprehend, the more you can gain, the more wisdom you can gain. The more you know, the more wisdom you can gain. If you can identify the deities that come to you, that gives you an advantage because you know who they are versus you have no idea what just happened. Oh, I had a dream and I don't know who the deity was. What are you going to do with that? If you can't even identify what's going on. That's why we study, to identify what is going on in our mind. We have to be able to identify what's going on in our memory beyond physical life. You have to put things in your mind to bring them out. If I say visualize an animal you never seen, you can't visualize it. You can't dream about it. You can't do nothing if it's not already there. Which is why your mind has to be grown like a plant. If you don't nurture your mind, it's not going to be there. The only reason it's there is because you gave it to yourself. Whatever you give yourself is what you have. You only have what you give yourself. You only have what you can remember. People start losing their minds when they can't remember. What's the first thing to be affected? Their memory. If you don't have a memory, you're finished. All we have is memory, and that's what the mind is. Memory. No memory, no mind. No mind, no vision. No vision, no manifestation. No manifestation, then you basically have no control over your life. But that's because you have no control over your mind or your memories. But we see how powerful words are when we know the meaning, the etymology, because it tells you what you don't know. Everybody already feel they already know. Again, I could have asked anybody, well, what is a mind? And they would have gave me all the same shit, mental facilities, thinking process. How many people would have said remembrance or memory? Because that's not the way we use it today. but the etymology shows us the original essence. And when we understand the original essence, we get a better, broader understanding of what words mean. Even if they're not used currently, it still doesn't negate the actual meaning just because we don't use it that way. We may use words differently, but it doesn't take away from the original manifestation. So when we trace back the original manifestations of words, which are closer to the roots of where the words come from, then we get the true essence. And when we get the true essence, you see how you can activate magic. See, because you have properly identified what the mind is now you know what to do. Oh, I got to put things in my memory now to advance. See, you actually have some type of purpose, some type of guidance now, because things are cleared up. If we don't take the time to clear up all of these things we just throw around haphazardly, we just throw around words, consciousness, frequency, vibration, we just be throwing these words around and we don't know the essence. We know the meaning, but not the essence, because the essence would help you to distinguish the difference between the two instead of we using these things interchangeably. Just like creation is not the same as attraction, there's a difference. You may not be able to tell the difference by looking up the definition. You may look up the definition of creation and manifestation and attraction. They all may be defined the same until you look up the etymology. Then you truly see the variations between words. If you just rely on definitions, there's so many words that have similar definitions. But if you go to the original essence, that's when you begin to truly distinguish the differences between the words. So not only do you know what you're truly saying out of your own mouth, you understand what everyone else is saying out of their mouth, even if they don't understand what they're saying. You know what they're really saying, even if they don't. And you know what you're really saying, which makes your words more powerful because you are using them properly based on the original essence. So now when I use mind, or when you use mind, now you know what you're really talking about. You're talking about your actual memory. So now that gives you a deeper understanding when that word comes up. Now you can identify, well, how is it being used? I'm receiving a call right now. Give me a second. I'm going to take this call. I'll be right back. Yeah, we still in here. We still in here. So, need I say more? I believe the point was proven. I know we've been all over the place, but I wanted to present a holistic perspective of you will have a better time connecting with the spirits that you actually are connected with via your bloodline versus your landmass. Just because we may be on a particular landmass does not change the origins of the blood, which are, as we know now, Asiatic. It goes beyond naming yourself according to a landmass. We name ourselves according to the entirety of the planet, making it 100% holistic. What's more holistic than naming yourself after the whole planet? So now it's not African, it's not American, Asian, Italian, Russian, whatever it may be. Asiatic, named after the entirety of the planet. But again, this is nothing new. It was revealed 100 years ago. But the secrets remained hidden at that time, so everything was taken on face value. So a lot of these teachings, the older teachings, are very harsh if taken on face value, which they were, I'm not going to say never intended to, but eventually you evolve beyond the surface meanings and you get into the actual science behind the surface meanings. The same with the Bible or the Quran, the Torah, any book that contains wisdom. You have the surface, then you have the secrets. The surface is just the surface, but the secrets are always hidden because you need your mind's eye, your mental vision or view to see them. Why? Because they activate your remembrance. So we have spirits all over the place that people just ignore because they feel they are more cultured doing other things. We literally have all of these American spirits that no one works with because they prefer African spirits, Indian spirits, European spirits. Doesn't matter. We have very few people actually working with American spirits, North, Central, or South. Yet, we are on these lands, if you are here, at least. So it doesn't apply to you if you're not on American soil. But if you are, I guarantee very few of us are working with these spirits. And that is purposeful. Because if you're not working with the spirits of the land that you occupy, what power do you think you're going to have? What power do you think you're going to have when you don't even respect the spirits of the land? You respect spirits of a whole nother foreign land more than you respect the spirits that predate you, that pave the way for you to navigate the lands. because they already constructed the lands. But we have to continue to dig deeper to truly understand what was really happening here in the Americas. Because we're constantly directed elsewhere. We're constantly being told to push our energy in a different direction. Is there any spirits you have in mind? American spirits. There are so many. First, you have to identify the continent. Northern spirits, central spirits, or southern spirits. Do you prefer the northern sky or the southern sky? See, when we have all our tools, you know exactly where to go. It's as simple as that. You got north and south, northern sky, southern sky. What constellations do you prefer? Then you got some type of direction. When you have no direction, simply look up and observe the stars, because they always tell the story which is occurring. So if anybody said, what spirit should I work with? Use your phone application, your Sky View or your Sky app. Just look at the fucking constellation that is right over you. And that's going to take you to some form of spirit or deity or story that takes you. You're going to find some shit out. What energy is hovering right over me right now? It's as simple as that. Let me educate myself to the story of this star, of this constellation, and let me really start to activate it, because it's literally right above me. So the more I learn it, it's going to teach me about what's going on around me, because they have an influence. They are influencing things. So the more you understand about their nature, the more that's why that happens. That's influencing. You start to piece things together. Nothing is haphazard. Everything is mathematical. So whatever star that hovers above you, study it. When you study your star, embody it. Study it, then embody it, so that it comes to life from within. And when it comes to life from within, no one can tell you anything, because it is illuminating you from inside. Fuck a book. You are in tune with the intelligence directly. There's no deeper. That's intimacy. That's I have an intimate connection with these spirits. That's what intimacy is called. Versus, let me direct you to what book to read. So it's a vast difference. And I can come up with these things easily because the occult allows you to see so many dimensions that you never have a question, because you always are problem solving. I'm always problem solving, which is why I'm always finding new ways to do these things. I'm constantly coming up with new ways to present the information. As you see, things are moving forward. No, you don't have to see my face. I'm just showing proof and evidence. I don't need donations when I provide a service. This is why I don't ask. I didn't even have my information up here. Well, the information wasn't even up. If you want to support me in any way, just buy a service. I would prefer to actually help you. Don't give me any money for no reason. If you want to give me anything, buy a service. I got everything, all type of prices, whatever you want to spend. From $5 to 1,000, whatever you need in between that world, then allow me to show forth what I can actually do. If anybody has any doubt, spend some money and let me show and prove. If this isn't enough, then spend the money and it will be a lot more personal. Anybody who has any doubt, who needs a little bit more intimacy, I have everything you can possibly need and more constantly coming. So, I told you guys, once again, the 13th between the 15th. So I said I was going to do a video right after this. But what I will do, let's let tomorrow play out and let me speak to you after. Let me not reveal everything while it's happening. I'm keeping tabs on everything. So I'm going to continue to gather the information. So after the 15th, because at that point, it's either my predictions were right or wrong. I said something spectacular was going to happen. And if something spectacular did not happen or does not happen, then nobody deserves to listen to anything I have to say, because I should not be making predictions that are not accurate. So we will allow time to do its thing, and we'll see if I'm right or if I'm wrong. Should you stick around or should you move on? Allow the science to show forth, and time will continue to prove its mastery. So with that in mind, I say peace. Deal with the stars. The constellations are always spectacular in their intelligence. Utilize the superconscious. We out this bitch. One.